Hi everyone, James Tiberius Kirk here with Rhyme Signatures, the nerdiest music review this side of boldly going where no one has ever gone before. And today we're going to be doing a review of the new Slift album, Ilion. You know, I got to thinking recently as to just what on earth my taste in music actually is. There's days where I want to bop hard to the big classics from ABBA, or sip a slow gin to the sounds of the immense dad rock power of Fleetwood Mac. But then there's days where I feel like splitting open the doors to hell whilst I injure my neck muscles to the likes of Slayer, Anthrax, Death, or Cannibal Corpse. Sometimes I enjoy the primary coloured simplicity of modern pop music. Other days I enjoy the esoteric beats and exploratory sound waves of the kind of experimental acid jazz that your parents warned you of staying away from because they're all too aware that you were conceived under a doobie-fueled all-night Zappa session back in the early 70s and they don't want you to repeat their own happy little accidents just yet. But whatever it may be, I've always felt a certain sense of pride that my tastes are difficult to pigeonhole. And I've certainly found the latest album from French trio Slift similarly difficult to box into any one particular genre or niche. It's a little bit spacey, it's a little bit rocky, a little bit jazzy, and entirely, completely, utterly spectacular. You see, the early part of any year, long before I get into the swing of my expected or usual release schedule, is when I start grasping at anything that's generating hype in the world of music. And I've not been able to look past the extraordinary buzz and praise that Ilion has been getting. I want to know what the deal was. Why was this getting 5 stars and 10 out of 10s from all my usual haunts? How could this album be on fire this much, but without me knowing a single thing about who this band is? So, in classic Rhyme Signature style, I did 5 minutes of frantic googling before setting out on this review, so I can as always pretend like I know what I'm talking about, and can confidently pretend in my own inimitable fashion like I'm some sort of expert on the band, despite the fact that I've accidentally just admitted to following the hype train. Formed in Toulouse, France in 2016, the band consists of brothers Jean and Remy Fossat and Canek Flores. Jean taking the lead on guitars, vocals and synth, Remy on bass and Canek on drums. Slift are one of those delightfully talented bands who've managed to find the way to make themselves sound like a far larger band than just the three of them, while not managing to juggle duties quite so well as the duo of Crownlands. Slift nonetheless have got quite the full-bodied sound out of so relatively limited a number of active band members. And I've been getting quite a hoot out of my continuing disbelief that this kind of sound is the product of just 3 ridiculously talented Frenchmen. And when I say talented, I ain't mucking around. Every component element of Slift's sound is absurdly tight. Everything feels like it's been carved from marble by an ancient Greek demigod. But as a bass man myself, I have to give particular props to Remy Fossat, whose mastery on the lower end and ability to drive into the lead with an instrument that so often plays backup is nothing short of jaw-dropping. There are moments in the opening tracks on Ilion where I whooped and hollered at his playing so loudly that I had to scrub back to hear the stuff that my yelling actually drowned out. So, what kind of music is this? As I've already mentioned, it's quite hard to pigeonhole this, but if you're a fan of the more long-form and heavier works of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, or Elder, Motorpsycho, and heck even Mastodon at times, then you'll be pretty well prepared for what to expect on Ilion. This is a behemoth-sized record coming in at a hefty 80 minutes in length, and those who know me well enough will know that when you're punching this high in length, you really have to have a point. The album is 8 tracks long, and short of the brief outro of Enter the Loop that sits at 5 minutes in length, not a single track on Ilion dips below 8 minutes long, and there are 3 tracks that breach 11 minutes each. So the big question is, does this album justify its length? Yes, good God in heaven, yes it does. If anything, I might even be so bold as to argue that this album is short? I mean, no, it's not short, obviously, but the band have crafted something so slick, so easy to digest, and yet so incredibly dense, layered, and complex that it skirts the line between flying by and feeling like an exploratory journey into the depths of the human psyche, that I'm starting to think that those crazy Frenchies have truly opened up my third eye here and made one of the most genuinely thrilling albums of the year, and it is the first yardstick against which I will be measuring the rest of the year. What I love most about Ilion is how it manages to craft these massive, punishing walls of sound where the assault on the senses is almost too much to bear at times, and the art of repetition of a theme or passage nearly becomes overwhelming, only for the band to know precisely when enough is becoming enough to allow these incredible, spacey, synthy passages to take centre stage for just long enough for you to catch your breath, and take in the absolute magnificence of the endless void of space that they have sent you into. There's these little hints of the isolationism that the Metroid Prime soundtrack deals with scattered throughout the album. These nuggets of sci-fi injected breathing space are amongst the most excellent parts of Ilion's sound, and really do help to give you that sense of floating off into the ether that other bands like Elder have managed to expertly display in their own discographies. But whereas Elder felt very grounded on terra firma with their sounds, Slift are very much exploring the more expansive elements that this kind of music allows for. They're grabbing onto a particular hook and pushing it bigger and bigger, wider and wider, until such a time that it feels like your perception of time is being sent askew, and before you know it, that 80 minutes of music is over, you've forgotten where the hell you are, and you've got to try and ground yourself again before strapping back into the cockpit and launching into the stratosphere all over again. The opening 3 tracks of Ilion could serve as an entire album's worth of material in their own right, being some of the most intense, hardcore examples of the kind of music that's likely to instill a sort of hallucinogenic trip as anything I've ever heard. The rawness of Jean Fossat's vocals landing firmly in Mastodon territory, but with an expansive etherealness to them, are a big highlight for me. His emotive expressionism acting as a great direction for where the rest of the music is going. But for me, it's from 4th track Confluence until the end of the album that we're truly past the launch sequence and floating in unfamiliar, alien, terrifying space. The control and relentless pounding of Remy's bass and Kanek's drums is mind-blowing. A perfect fusion of technical showmanship and melodic expertise. Listening to the two of them trade off against each other is like watching an interstellar ballet. It's the kind of musical poetry that we only get to witness once in a blue moon, and I honestly feel like I could listen to these sounds forever. Now, perhaps it's because I'm getting older. Perhaps it's because I'm looking to find music that's capable of de-stressing me. But I'm finding myself looking for this kind of experience more and more. I need music that encapsulates an atmosphere and a feeling. Now, I noted in my review of Infant Island's Obsidian Wreath that music is in fact a feeling, and that statement held true for that album just as much as it does for this one. Ilion is one of those records that isn't looking to rush things. It's happy to take as much time as it needs to tell its story. But this isn't some kind of rambling, free jazz or live recorded jam session. Everything here feels super deliberate and calculated, but neatly sidesteps any concerns about feeling too cold or clinical. This is a comforting album, but also the kind that makes you feel very, very small and extremely humbled. To compare it to anything that I've listened to a lot of, I'd say it's not too dissimilar to Ulver's ATG CLVL SSCAP album from 2016. The difference, of course, being that that album was recorded mostly as live jam sessions, but it's got a very similar kind of grandiosity to the scale and scope of it all. I mean, sure, the overall sound of the record from opening to closing bars is very much the same focus and style. This isn't a kind of madcap progressive rock romp through every kind of off-kilter instrumentation the band can think of. Slift have very much chosen their battleground with Ilion, and the chances are that if you don't vibe the opening couple of tracks, then you're not likely to come around to the rest of the album by the time things close out. But this isn't an album that's trying to keep you second-guessing what's coming next. Slift have crafted something that's predictable, but in the best possible way. You'll be blindsided more by the sheer quality of the instrumentation and the implementation of mood and scale than you will be by its originality or quirkiness. If you're looking for a long-form record that plays with style and genre, then this isn't going to be your kind of thing. But if you're looking for an album that's happy staying within the lines of the boundaries they've clearly marked for themselves, then it is genuinely hard to think of a better musical experience than this. So, what else can I say about Slift's Ilion? This album has been a perfect example of why I love to go looking for things to listen to rather than sticking to my tried and true. If I'd just been content to wait for the records that I knew I would like, rather than trying out a little bit of everything coming out in the early stages of 2024, then I might have easily looked right past this one. I mean, the album art honestly nearly put me off. A quartet of gas-masked individuals with Play-Doh spaghetti mouths isn't that kind of thing that immediately screams, "Listen to me, listen to me!" But I simply can't ignore the sound of the hype train, especially when there's precious little new music out at the moment, as I'm a person who's always hungry for something fresh to my ears. To call anything an Album of the Year contender in January always feels a tiny bit presumptuous. I mean, there's 11 months of the year to go yet, and literally anything can happen. But darn it all, Ilion is certainly a captivating experience that's kept me extremely satisfied during my time with it. Yes, it's incredibly long. Yes, it's mostly the same or similar of an experience from start to finish. And while some people say that there's too much of a good thing, they very clearly weren't referencing to this album when they first said that. I personally will be grabbing this in physical format. I'm just not sure I'll be displaying the scary artwork for all to see once it arrives, unless it's to make any unwelcome guests feel uncomfortable enough to see themselves quietly out. This, guys, is all of course my opinion, so if you have listened to Ilion, please tell me what you thought of this record in the comments down there. If you like this video, please do give it a thumb, please do share it with anyone else who you think might possibly enjoy it, and as always, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more content. I will be leaving my link tree down below where you'll find all the various places to find or stalk me on social media, so please do drop me a follow. I'm very nice, I promise. And until next time, guys, as always, keep your rhyme signatures extremely odd.